And joining us now, the News Tribune's Gregg Bell of KJR as well. And Gregg, there's so much news to get to with the Seahawks team. Seems like every day there's something. And yesterday the big news was they released Kenny McIntosh. I have to believe that has something to do with his slower recovery from the ACL.
It was 12 months ago, Paul. He had a bad knee injury, multiple ligament tears, and a complicated recovery. He still isn't on the field. He was on the physically unable to perform list to begin training camp, and it wasn't his only injury in those 3 years since the Seahawks drafted him in the 7th round out of Georgia. Has not fulfilled at all the potential he had because just couldn't get on the field. Because he was counting against the 90-man roster, because in the PUP list, the physically unable to perform list rules for the start of training camp is if you're on at the start of camp, you still count against the 90-man. And that's why he wasn't waived injured. It wouldn't surprise me, though, if there's some kind of injury settlement down the road that could, if Kenny McIntosh thought he was healthy enough to play. He's young enough that he could try to come back with another team and potentially with the Seahawks on a new contract. But for now, he just wasn't going to get on the field. And it happened a couple hours. The official announcement last night happened a couple hours after Emmanuel Wilson was getting 1 reps in the backfield. The free agent from Green Bay they signed this offseason. That was the first time I'd seen Wilson with the ones.
Yeah, with that in mind, we saw a lot of Wilson, I thought, on Sunday. Is that a comfort level that they're having with Price, with Wilson, with Halani right now?
They want to see what they have. They're trying to move it around. They're giving Wilson a shot. Halani's been the one through spring and in the first couple days of camp. Jadarian Price was his best day yesterday, catching the ball. I mean, they are front-loading him with passes. Thomas Hammock, the running back coach, is really drilling him in particular with the pass game, with pass blocking. They're throwing medicine balls at him, and he's parrying them back like he would be hand-shivering an on-rushing lineman. The pass game is where he's going to make his mark. If he's going to start, he's the first-round draft pick. How quickly he assumes that role into the number 1 offense depends on his development in the pass game. He didn't do it at Notre Dame. Yeah. Because Jeremiah Love was the number 1 back. And so he didn't do much pass blocking. He didn't do much pass catching. And he knows that's where his improvement. He said that's where he needs to improve.
Well, it's quiet behind us, but it's going to be a little while later on. The fans are back. They weren't here yesterday. There's kind of been you've seen fans for 2 practices, off for 1 practices. Coach McDonald talked about that. He actually likes that cadence. He likes having the fans here for a couple and then kind of getting to work when the fans aren't here. Your thoughts on that?
Well, it's similar to what Pete Carroll did. He didn't have fans out here every day either. And let's face it, a Monday afternoon, there may not be many fans or as many fans for people that actually work and have jobs. It's also gotten more difficult for fans to get here. Remember, Chris, when this first started, Paul, you guys remember, they used to be able to drive up relatively close, and it was goal line to goal line. The berm was packed. The last few years, not so much. You have to go to Renton Landing. You have to register online, pay $10, get a school bus to come up. It's a little bit of a process in a day. McDonald loves to change up his guys to keep them from being complacent or feel like the same old, and I think the environment is part of that. The fans, the noise, the DJ, and then maybe more teaching on the days the fans aren't here. A little quieter. He just likes the yin and yang of that, so it's not the same old, because by the time like August 15th rolls around, it starts getting to be pretty much of a grind.
Yeah. Let's talk about McDonald and the guys he has on that defense that he's building. Ernest Jones, he calls him the alpha on that side, and there's so many great things to say about Ernest Jones. But, Ernest himself seems to be a guy that doesn't want to go out in public as much anymore because he is becoming such a popular figure in this town. And he kind of joked a little bit about, when he goes out there that the fans want to take pictures with him and they want him to flip off the camera as well and have some fun with him. Is that just kind of where he is? Is he kind of a reluctant hero on this team?
Well, the hero part of it came in Inglewood last year in November when after the 4-interception game by Sam Darnold, he said anyone that has a problem with the quarterback, F you. And ever since, he became a folk hero for that. It was almost like a Marshawn Lynch moment for Ernest Jones. I will say this. When they cut Dotson and they cut Jerome Baker in the middle of the season 2 years ago, in the first season that Mike McDonald was here, and they traded for Ernest Jones, it revolutionized the defense. Ernest Jones is exactly what Mike McDonald wants as a middle linebacker, a traffic cop, someone who anticipates plays, someone who can play the run and play the pass, someone who's a leader in the locker room and on the field, someone who can process McDonald's verbiage and commands on an instant at the snap. It's hard to do what they're doing defensively. McDonald yells one-word commands very late in the pre-snap cadence when at the line of scrimmage, And Jones has to orchestrate that one-word command and get all 11 players into a different place at the snap to confuse the offense. You need a really sharp cat to do that. Oh, by the way, he's a 2-time Super Bowl winner with only 5 years in the league. That helps, too. Ernest Jones is an indispensable player in the locker room, on the field. I'd rank him and Devin Witherspoon as perhaps the most important players on that defense.
And when they talk, people listen. We've already talked about Price. He was given some props yesterday about Jadarian Price and how he's
the wheel
looking.
route he ran on Ernest Jones, he turned him completely around. He made him look like an undrafted rookie for a touchdown.
And he talked about that. He also gave some props about Dante Fowler. What are we seeing from him so far at training camp?
Fowler had his first real day with the ones yesterday because DeMarcus Lawrence got what looked like a veteran day off. A 12-year veteran, Fowler. He said that Auden Dirty, who had coached him at Atlanta and Dallas, tried to get him to come to Seattle last year when DeMarcus Lawrence came from the Cowboys, and he chose to go back. Fowler did to the Cowboys instead. That wasn't a very good move. Dallas over Seattle last year. But then Dirty called again, and so did Lawrence. DeMarcus Lawrence and Fowler played together in Dallas. And they both recruited Fowler heavily to get. He'll be a situational pass rusher. I don't expect him to be an every down guy because at his age and 12 years in the league, he probably doesn't want to defend the run. His job is to get to the quarterback. Derek Hall is the every down edge type of guy. Chenan Wosu is more of an every down edge type of guy, although they use him in passing situations more than not. But Fowler's here in a situational specialized role. You can't McDonald says it all the time. You cannot have enough pass rushers in this pass-happy league.
How about A.J. Barner? He talked to the media yesterday, and we know that he's done some mixed martial arts in the past and off-season training. This year he said something about working with the Tai Chi and easing his way back in. We know he has one speed. It's kind of 100 miles an hour with this guy. At this point, does he have to kind of preserve his body just a little bit, knowing after what he went through, because he got beat up a little bit toward the end of last season? Does he even know how to preserve his body for a deep playoff run?
I think he needs to preserve his ego because he grew up an hour from me in Aurora, Ohio. Nobody from Aurora, Ohio wears faux mink coats and cowboy hats and sunglasses like A.J. Barner does. The guy is a caricature of himself.
Sure. We were hoping you would for HBO Hard Knocks.
Yeah, that's not. A.J. Barner could be the Seahawks cast on Boogie Nights. That's the kind of guy he is. He says he's the best tight end in the league. He says he's an all-pro. He played through shoulder and ankle injuries last year that he had the surgeries that you talked about. He had 2 surgeries after the Super Bowl. So in that regard, he thinks he's very healthy, better than he was throughout last season. What makes him so good is what made George Kittle so great for the 49ers about a decade ago. He blocks and he catches passes. Well, now he's in an offense that has the 49ers tight end game and Brian Fleury. Fleury was the tight ends coach in San Francisco last year. So he is bringing a tight end centric offense. I think, and this is hyperbole to say somewhat, I think A.J. Barner is the Seahawks' George Kittle, and that Brian Fleury is going to use him as much more like that this year.
We got Jake Bobo coming up after you.
Oh, man, you need about 45 minutes for that.
And we want to break down the wide receiver room. And obviously we know about JSN. He recently spoke with the media. Rashid Shaheed and what he's doing, Cooper Kupp. But Torrey Horton, interesting. I mean, he could be a big name this year.
They envision when they traded for Rashid Shaheed to have Horton and Shaheed both be deep speed guys, both be options in the kick return game. And let's see defenses deal with 2 speed guys, with Smith and Jigba and Cooper Kupp and A.J. Barner underneath. We didn't see that, of course, because of the shin injury that Horton knocked out his season in November. That's the plan. Send the speed guys, spread them 4 wide, get Kupp and Smith and Jigba, and then have Barner out there and give Darnold all kinds of options, speed, underneath, intermediate. We haven't seen a Seahawks offense yet with that. We're going to see it when Horton gets back. He's not there yet. He took the day off yesterday. They're pacing him back from that shin injury, but he wasn't on physically unable to perform list to begin camp like I thought he would be. But they are pacing him somewhat. He hasn't done any 11 on 11. And it may be a couple weeks before he gets into the full mill.
Going to be fun to watch him. Yeah. And by the way, Paul, we never gave a shout-out to Gregg. I mean, you were voted number 1 by producer Joel Knepp yesterday as the number 1 media member to watch. I mean, you beat out.
What does that mean?
Well, it speaks highly of you.
I think that's a low bar in this market.
You beat Softy. You beat Brock Heward. You were ahead of Brock
Egan.
I mean, you were number 1.
Number one in what?
To actually try and get on Hard Knocks.
Well, not to get on. We just expect to be on there. Yeah, and I think the point was you ask a lot of great questions, so
well, thank you for that.
That's what we believe you will be the number 1 media member on that.
Number 1 media member is a low bar, I will say that. That's not something I aspire to be, and I'm not exactly looking forward to being on Hard Knocks. The players are talking about it. It's an interesting subplot to this. They've never had this before. It's been 25 years since a Super Bowl champion was featured on Hard Knocks, and as you guys see it, the boom mics, the cameras are everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, they got a boom mic over Witherspoon when he's tying his shoes.
Yeah.
They have figured out that Witherspoon's going to be a star, a glib, outspoken, chatty guy. The nation's going to learn Devin Witherspoon starting August 4th.
I'm mic'd up right now, by the way.
Yeah. Sure. You bring up, I mean, we talked to those guys yesterday. There's up to 40 people on that Hard Knock staff running around here. They work 12 to 14-hour days, so they're putting in their work, and that show is awesome to watch. It's going to be a lot of fun watching that. A lot of fun, of course, following Gregg Bell throughout the season as he continues to give us all the Seahawks insight. Listen, man, thank you for coming on.
Appreciate
visiting with you as always.